YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. Today, we're going through some NFL trade candidates. I'm going to give you their value, in my opinion. I'm going to give you landing spots, wild card landing spots, and then my prediction on what is going to happen with that player. 9 players to talk about here. This morning, we woke up to Roquan Smith requesting a trade. That kind of sparked this a little bit. We'll talk about Roquan Smith first. It's a big-time potential trade candidate. And again, we're going to give all my predictions, my thoughts, and everything here. So we always do these videos, so I'm kind of done talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. We're not including him in this. I'm kind of getting sick of it. I'm pretty sure everyone is. We'll see what happens when the time is right with him. But, yeah, join us. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Full NFL coverage here. Cannot wait for the season to start. We'll have you covered for every game, preseason games, everything. On Twitter as well, talking during live games. Super followers are getting involvement in a lot of things. We're going to do a live mock draft for fantasy. There's going to be a fantasy league. They'll get special involvement during the year with pick'ems and things as well. So super followers will be much appreciated. Here's our Twitter. Check it out. A lot of you jumping on that super follow train there. That really appreciate you guys' support. A lot of news, rumors, updates on our Twitter. Always talking during live games as well. Let's talk about Roquan Smith. Big-time linebacker, still young, still getting better perhaps too, of the Chicago Bears. Requested a trade this morning. You know, a big letter he wrote basically. You know, it sounds like he loves Chicago, but he feels a little disrespected. And I've talked about it several times in the past, especially on Twitter, that I believe why the Bears are a little hesitant to give him that giant payday, which he deserves, but why they're a little hesitant because they switch schemes. And, do you give that guy all that money before seeing him in that scheme? Now, you could believe that Roquan Smith is talented enough to be able to figure it out and play in a different scheme, of course, but there still is a lot of risk in that. So I understand both sides, kind of like Roquan Smith wants the money that he deserves, and I understand the Bears, it's very risky to make him, we'll say, close to or the highest paid linebacker when you haven't seen him play in that scheme. So, and we've seen for some reason that position, guys all of a sudden go downhill when scheme change happens, but Roquan Smith is a different talent, so I'd like to say optimistic there with him. So top landing spots, one with the Steelers. They value the linebacker position very highly. They really struggled last year at the position and to stop the run. They run a 3-4, so that's kind of where Roquan thrived before in that Bears scheme, a 3-4 inside linebacker. So just fit, need, I could see the interest, all of the above. The Chargers have Brandon Staley, who used to coach the Chicago Bears, and he would fit into linebacker position, which could help the Chargers, stop the run and just get better at that linebacker position all around. The Falcons as well, DEION Jones hasn't really worked out because of injuries, and their scheme change is a good example. He kind of went downhill with the scheme change, but injuries played a part as well. And they have Ryan Pace there, who drafted Roquan Smith, was the Bears general manager just last year and previously. So he's got to have some interest in Roquan Smith. For sure, you would think, but how much say does he have? He's been bringing in Bears players, so he may have some sort of pull around there. And the Falcons could use Smith as part of the rebuild. They can fill that, that hole there at the linebacker position. Maybe move on from DEION Jones, who we'll talk about. The Patriots, they're looking to get better at linebacker and kind of stay young at the same time. They got some younger guys in there now, but they're not really strong there. Patriots don't have money now. That would be the tough part. Could they restructure some contracts? Could they trade Nelson Aguilar to afford Roquan Smith on that first round pick option, 5th-year option? But they could afford him in the future with that big time extension. They have that future money. And then the Ravens, who could, they're always looking to add players like this. They could upgrade there. Maybe the other 4 teams maybe a little bit more likely. Some wildcard teams, Denver in the market for linebackers. I don't know if they go out and, spend like this, trade a big-time draft pick and then spend big money. That's why I view them as a wild card. Dolphins as well. They could use something extra Jerome Baker. They did draft Channing Tindall. Could just ride it out with him. And then Washington, need a linebacker. People mention the Commanders when it comes to a linebacker. Maybe the similar situation as the Bears. Does he fit in that scheme? I think more likely he's going to go to a 3-4 scheme to play if he is traded to play the inside linebacker role. So you see my prediction down there. I'm going to say the Bears, and it helped that Ryan Poles, their new GM, kind of get confusing, Ryan Pace to Ryan Poles. Poles came out and said they want to extend Roquan Smith. They're going to work towards extending him. So that kind of helps with this prediction. That could be they're just saying that too. Yeah, they may tweak the offer. They're not going to give him maybe exactly what he wants, and maybe that helps the trade value a little bit, perhaps. To talk about the value, too, I think a first-round pick or multiple day two, something that equals a first-round pick without giving a first, either or. But, yeah, it's something they want to extend him. How much will they adjust? They're going to adjust the offer. How much will they adjust it? My problem is, will somebody offer that first-round pick? If the Bears get offered the multiple day twos, like a 2 seconds, maybe this year or next year, or a 2 or 3, and then maybe a day 3 on top of that, perhaps, do they accept it? Do they, and at that point, it's, we'll take the gamble. We'll pay the guy big money. We'll take the gamble. If they can get a first-round pick, they may go, hey, we're in that rebuild stage. We got our own first-round pick next year. We can add another one here, and then maybe they deal him. I'm starting to think that, there could be a team that offers a first. The Falcons are definitely not going to offer a first because they want to keep themselves in that quarterback scenario for the next draft. Patriots, I don't know if they would either because it's kind of up in the air how they'll be. You look at the Steelers and the Chargers would be the teams that would consider it. Unlikely teams trade a first at this point of the offseason. Roquan Smith's usually not available, but that's why it's tough. I don't know if I could see it. I can see a team offering a first, but the highest offer might be equal value without giving up a first, and the Bears may go, we'd rather take that gamble, that risk. We'll pay them the big money and we'll extend them. So that'll be my prediction. If somebody throws out a first, they may accept that. They may accept it. And I can understand why accepting it as well because, again, do we dish out that big money? So interesting thing to monitor here. The next, it's tough, too, because he's kind of holding out right now in a way. It was kind of technically holding in because he was at training camp, but just watching. But now he's officially requested a trade. I think that's kind of a holdout. And it's tough because he's got to learn the new system and everything and kind of play that new role that's a little bit different than playing that 3-4 inside linebacker, and he's just not there. So it's tough. Tricky situation for the Bears because if they're going to extend him, they want to do it ASAP so they get him in there. And if they're not, you want to get a first-round pick back. Will they get that first-round pick back? So we'll see. Very interesting. Since we're talking about the Bears, talk about TEVEN Jenkins, who popped up in these discussions. Was that last week? And he's actually practicing now, but that could be to help to facilitate that trade because Jenkins maybe wants to be dealt, and the Bears they've held talks as well. Maybe they got lowballed a little bit, so they were probably like, "Hey, we're trying to help you out. We're trying to trade you here. Get out here and show us what you got. Maybe that can help things, or maybe they're just going to keep him. It's definitely possible as well. Top landing spots bring back the Falcons because they could. And Jenkins, I think some teams will think of as maybe a right tackle. Some teams may like him as a guard. Questions about him fitting the Bears' new scheme there, kind of like with the Roquan Smith situation, because the Bears ran more of a power, man scheme last year. Now they're looking to go more outside zone, and Jenkins kind of a physical power blocker north and south, not really getting downfield, upfield, east and west, which is where they're heading. So, and he could be that. He's still young, but they drafted him to fit the old scheme, right? So the Falcons, could use him at right tackle. They can use him at guard. Ryan Pace is there. I think we got to mention the Falcons when it comes to any Bears players at this point. The Raiders as well. They were a little sloppy in that preseason game. All starters weren't in there, but there is some questions in there. Denzel Good retired as well. Some questions. And then the Steelers as well could use some offensive linemen. Ravens, Chargers, Ravens, I think he fits their scheme. We really thought he was a very good fit with the Ravens pre-draft before he was drafted by the Bears. The Chargers could use that right tackle. Wildcard teams, Tennessee, could use him at right tackle, can use him at guard. Kind of fits that Derrick Henry running style, blocking for him. Chiefs could use him at right tackle. And the Jets, because Becton just went down, they are looking to sign Dwayne Brown. 2 left tackles will be starting for them probably. I think they'll sign Brown. So they could look to add Jenkins perhaps, but would be depth. I think he's a little upset because he's not the starter when he was a kind of a top pick, somewhat of a top pick last year. Value's tricky, 4th or 5th. They just drafted him in the 2nd a year ago. They moved up to get him, so you would think you got to get a 4th, right? I don't think teams are offering that right now, so it's a little tricky. I'm going to go. I really like the Falcons for him because Ryan Pace was there. And I made a recent video with a trade scenario involving TEVEN Jenkins to the Falcons, but I'm kind of feeling the Raiders all of a sudden. I really think he fits that Josh McDaniels system there, and they got some questions, across the board there. Look at, Right tackle. I mean, Leatherwood's probably going to start there, but the guard position as well, which Jenkins could play, and they're kind of lacking sure thing depth. Like, are these guys solid? Denzel Good, who was kind of a tackle / guard, he retired. So, and they have some money too. Not that you need a lot of money to afford Jenkins, but I think the Raiders definitely could be interested, especially with again the new scheme there under Josh McDaniels. So I really like the Raiders. I really like the Falcons, and he's back at practice for the Bears. So who knows? Maybe he sticks it out with the Bears there. But there's definitely teams interested here. Next, talk about Kareem Hunt, who requested a trade, and the Browns said they won't trade him. We've heard that dance before, and sometimes the teams just end up giving in and trading him. So it's definitely possible. I really like the Cardinals as a fit. Him being that big-time receiving back, and they loved the 1-2 punch for years, even when they had Drake. But with Connor and Edmonds last year, they lost Edmonds, and Kareem Hunt is a big-time upgrade. Even though Edmonds is getting better, Hunt is a big-time upgrade. Pairing with big-time upgrade over Edmonds, not saying Connor, but him and Connor together would be fantastic as well. Connor was fantastic last year, unbelievable, but there are some durability issues. You don't want to overdo it over there, so pairing Hunt with them would be fantastic. They do like some of the depth that they have at the position. They kind of got a little battle going there. I like the Ingram pick, but you do get a lot better with Hunt. I would like that offense very much with Kareem Hunt. Falcons could use a running back. Obviously, a pass-catching one could be appealing like Hunt. The Saints always want to have a strong 1-2 punch. They have Kamara and Ingram. Is that living up to the Saints' standards right now? And Kamara having the suspension coming? I think it's a possibility. The Bucs are always looking to get better. They're not afraid to get better. They're always making moves, so they could look to pair him with Leonard Fournette. And the Texans could get better at the position as well. Some wild card teams, the Rams. Just because, they're trying to win a Super Bowl again. They actually have a little bit of, believe it or not, a little bit of money to spend as well. The Dolphins got a list full of running backs. You get a lot better with Hunt, though. And the Giants trying to get somebody in there with Barkley, perhaps. These are kind of wild cards for a reason. They'll value around the 4th-round pick. I'm going to say the Browns mean it when they're not going to trade Kareem Hunt. He wants an extension, and I'm not going to sit here and predict an extension will happen. It could. But what I really feel is going to happen is the Browns are going to keep him because I think they're going to get some lowball offers perhaps. But another one, they could afford to give him a raise this year and kind of keep him happy. Like, hey, you're not getting paid much this year because he's on a really team-friendly contract. I know you want an extension, but here, we got a lot of cap space for this year. We're in trouble for the future. Not in trouble, but sticky situation for the future. We're gonna give you this raise, keep you happy this year, and then hey, you'll be a free agent next year. You can sign where you want for the amount of money you want. To me, that makes sense. That hasn't really been said yet that this is a possibility, but it makes so much sense to me. So, I look out for those top landing spot teams. That makes some sense, but the Browns got to give in and give them a raise for this year. There's really no big negative, maybe he declines it. Maybe he's like, I don't really care about this year. I want the extension or trade me. I don't see that though, but there's really no negative for the Browns. Give him that big raise this year and then let him be a free agent there in the near future and go from there. So to me, that just makes sense. Josh Jacobs, his name kind of got brought up because he played in that Hall of Fame game, which is a bit surprising, and he got multiple reps, several snaps. So that was interesting. It could be just Josh McDaniels. That's how he rolls with things. Or it could be they don't, maybe they're not set with their running back position, on who's getting what playing time, and maybe these guys are available. And they did decline his 5th-year option, which was a little bit surprising at the time, if you remember earlier this offseason. Landing spots, kind of some similar teams that could use a potential running back one. There, and then some wild card teams, some different teams there. The Bills got so many running backs now, but if they add Josh Jacobs to the Bills, and they're even scarier than where they're at now. So a wild card team. I think a 3rd plus a 4th maybe could be his value, maybe 3rd and a 5th. He is on an expiring deal, but he's a very talented running back that could be getting better. An every down type back guy. I'm gonna say the Raiders keep Josh Jacobs. Josh McDaniels kind of came out and said that. We don't really have an intention to trade him. It just might be how he goes about preseason, perhaps. Weird it was the Hall of Fame game, so I don't see a trade here. I think they're kind of going to ride him out this year and then make the decision next year, but it's kind of the Patriots way with McDaniels and Ziegler there, that they don't pay running backs. They may offer Jacobs something when he's a free agent. It'd probably be a low ball offer. I think they'll ride it out with him, though. Pretty crazy if they trade him, though. It's a pretty good running backs available. Speaking of the Raiders and speaking of running backs, Kenyan Drake played a bit. I mean, he's coming off a gruesome ankle injury, and they played him. Not only did they play him, then he went to the sideline. Looked like he was in some good pain on the sideline. Remember, he was coming off that ankle injury. Next thing you know, they got him back in there. I mean, it's kind of stupid in a way. But they like Zamir White a lot. I mean, Abdullah scored in that preseason game. Not that his job's that safe, and they're going to keep Josh Jacobs. So Drake, on the other hand, definitely could be dealt. It's definitely possible. Look at some of the similar teams we had in the running for running backs, teams that are kind of looking for a high-end running back too, and then some wild card teams there, but some of the similar teams. The value's 5th or 6th. It's a little tricky because the Raiders can't cut him. So maybe teams are going, you can't cut him because they're going to lose money if they cut him. That's why. So if you want to save that roster spot, hey, we'll trade for him. We're going to lowball you, give this 6th-round pick. I can see that. Also, the Raiders have the money to kind of stash him still. They're not desperate to cut or trade. Again, they would lose money if they cut him. So it could be a 5th. His talent definitely says 5th or even better. But in that range, and I'm going to say get a little bold here. If Alvin Kamara is suspended, I think the Saints are in the market. They know they're in the market for another running back because they really value having multiple solid guys there. So if Kamara is suspended, they're going to sniff around a little bit. And again, I don't think Hunt gets dealt. I don't think Jacobs gets dealt. Maybe some surprising guy gets dropped. But it seems like this is the most logical one here for the Saints to trade for Drake, again, if Kamara is suspended. So it's a little bold, but I did like that prediction there. So it kind of be Drake and Ingram, and then Drake probably be running back too when Kamara comes back. It just seems like a really good group there. And again, they value having that group, and they're really good with their running backs too. So I felt pretty good about that one, even though it's a little bit bold. Some things need to happen there. Still waiting on the Kamara suspension. I think it's unfair to the league that they did not decide that yet. I mean, we're preseason week 1. It's pretty obvious that they're kind of waiting for the Deshaun Watson situation, which shouldn't be the case. To me, it's a little unfair what's going on there. So is he going to be suspended last second? I'm going to hate that. So if that's the case, so we'll see. He felt he was going to be suspended for 6 games. I don't see the 6. Could he be for 4? That, I guess, makes sense. They just got to make up their mind here. Preston Williams, it sounds like the Dolphins are shopping not just Preston Williams, but Lynn Bowden as well, who we'll talk about right after this. But Preston Williams, he had some flashes a little earlier in his career. I mean, he was pretty damn good at Tennessee, too, and he transferred to Colorado State and was pretty damn good there. So some top landing spots, some teams that need a receiver, the Texans, the Bears, the Ravens, the Broncos, the Packers, some teams that could use one there. Wild card teams, there's more teams that need a receiver here. As you see listed with the wild cards, I say a 6th-round pick. It's kind of clear the Dolphins are shopping these guys right now. Maybe they could pull a 5th. I don't think so. It's possible. I'm going to go with the Texans, though. They don't have Mechie, for this year. They're kind of sniffing around, looking at receivers as well. Only sure thing is Brandon Cooks. I feel pretty solid about Nico Collins, but definitely can use another guy, possibly on the outside there, and Preston Williams. So I thought that made sense. The Bears, they need receivers as it is. N'Keal Harry goes down. Do they trade for another guy? Probably not. Ravens kind of probably go big or go home when it comes to trading for receivers. The Broncos lost Tim Patrick. So I actually like the Broncos a bit. And the Packers maybe go big or go home as well. I like the Texans and the Broncos. That were kind of my main picks there, replacing Tim Patrick. But Broncos could make way, without making a move for a receiver because they got a pretty good group there. Can't forget about a guy like different type of receiver, but KJ Hamler in there is the receiver 3 right now. But yeah, I'm going to go Texans. I still think they're kind of looking for these guys, these receivers. So I felt pretty good about that, and it feels like he definitely could be dealt. A little unhappy on where he's at in the depth chart and training camp. I mean, they had him higher up in the first official depth chart. That might be to try to get him dealt and to boost his value, if any, at all, I should say. And Lynn Bowden, the gadget receiver from Kentucky, who was already dealt by the Raiders to the Dolphins, could be dealt again. And you see some receiver-needy teams. It's a little bit different than a Preston Williams type of receiver. Lynn Bowden's going to be, a little bit of a gadget type of guy. Can kind of get him the ball to the backfield as well, end arounds, underneath stuff. there. Could use him at Wildcat. It's definitely a possibility. So see some different teams, a little bit different teams, but for the most part, the same teams that need a receiver. I thought it was interesting that the Browns, what's unfortunate, they lost Jakeem Grant earlier today, a torn Achilles. And that's kind of a shifty or somewhat of a gadget-type receiver returner. So, yeah, Bowden kind of makes sense there as well. The Falcons kind of run, his style, but they kind of do it with Patterson already. And then some wild card teams. You see the 49ers, I think he would fit there. Maybe they can use him, like Deebo Samuel last year, kind of get him some carries, even though he's nowhere near Deebo Samuel, but to take some carries away from Deebo Samuel. So, and the Rams, I think, felt pretty good about them as a wild card team. You think the Rams are probably going to sign OBJ, then they got a loaded receiver room, but man, this gadget type of guy, they can move around a bit. I don't know. I could see it there for some reason, but value is probably a 7th maximum. It might be a swap of late picks as well. I think they end up cutting him, the Dolphins. I don't think anyone trades from. There's going to be teams interested, but they may say, hey, I get the feeling they may end up cutting him. We'll see if we can claim him off waivers. And it was tough picking a team. I had to add that in here. Which team kind of claims him off waivers? It's kind of leaning towards the Bears there because they definitely can use somebody else. And they're going to get creative with running the ball with Fields and different things. So I think they can view him as a fit, kind of a gadget type guy like that. We'll see. That's kind of a bold thing. Some things need to happen. He needs to get cut to be right and then claimed by the Bears or one of these teams. So we will see. Next, Nelson Aguilar was a receiver that could be available from the Patriots. He kind of didn't really work out like they planned last year, but he's still solid. I mean, he was fantastic for the Raiders 2 seasons ago. This is more of a proven guy in a way compared to the last couple guys we talked to. But I think he's a perfect replacement for James Washington with the Cowboys. They did trade Cooper away for around where Aguilar's value is, so that could look bad if they kind of trade that back. But the difference would be the money, though. It's saved from Amari Cooper, but really good fit to replace James Washington. I think he'd be fantastic with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. The Browns could definitely use another guy in there. Probably would all depend on Deshaun Watson's situation. The Ravens have Bateman, and then they need some help, really. And could he go back to the Raiders? After they don't have the best depth at the receiver position, solid rotation. He would be receiver 3 and playing with Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow there. So could he go back? And then Josh McDaniels. It's interesting because Josh McDaniels is part of the Patriots who signed him. It was kind of one of their big signings. So he could maybe want him still with the Raiders, or since he was underwhelming last year with McDaniels and the Patriots, maybe he wouldn't be that interested. But some wildcard teams, some teams that need a receiver, maybe a little less likely to go for him than the teams in the top landing spots. I think around a 5th round pick. I'm going to say the Ravens. The Ravens, there's still some receivers available via free agency, which the Ravens could kind of grab a guy there. I really, really like the fit. We know he fits with the Raiders, but I really like the fit of the Cowboys replacing James Washington, but do they actually do it? The Ravens almost have to. I mean, Bateman, I feel good about Bateman. After that, I don't really feel great about the other guys. They got some solid young rotation guys. Like, those are legit rotation guys, but they're not receivers 2 and 3, which are starters. The Ravens run some tight ends, so they start with two receivers, but they could use a guy like this. They've been clearing quietly, kind of been clearing a little bit of space, so they can kind of make a move for this. It could be for a pass rusher, though, at the same time, or both. We'll see what happens there. But it's almost like they have to do something like this. So we'll predict the Ravens for a guy like Nelson Aguilar. And again, could they go for like a T.Y. Hilton in free agency? One example there. And then talk about DEION Jones here, who the Falcons were trying to trade, didn't really have any takers, or they were getting lowballed. We never got clarification on that. And they said they didn't want to cut DEION Jones because this is a guy that you just plain out cut. Or did they say that to try to get teams like, all right, they're not going to cut him, we better trade for him? I don't know if they would just right out cut him. Not too many landing spots because which team can afford him, want to pay him, view him as a fit because he hasn't been so great since they switched to a 3-4. Probably needs a 4-3. Or, some of these a lot of these teams running multiple schemes right now. They're switching back and forth. There's really no set scheme for their defenses. But I think he's a good fit in Washington. I kind of tinkered with the idea of trading him for Daron Payne. It kind of made a lot of sense, but I think it would have happened by now if they were both on the same page with that one. Broncos looking for a linebacker. I wouldn't really view him as a fit. They're going to switch things up a little bit, though. They were in on Anthony Barr, who I didn't view as a fit for them at all either. So they're up to something there. So maybe they could be in on a guy like Jones. And the Chiefs, play him on the outside of Bolton there. They could just play Bolton and Willie Gay, though. That's possible. Some wild card teams, teams that could use a linebacker. The Bears I put in there. If I thought it was interesting that it, in a way, kind of made sense. Because the Falcons were a landing spot for Roquan Smith. Could they swap linebackers? And of course, the Bears would get a pretty good pick there with that. But DEION Jones could actually fit their new scheme a bit there. It kind of makes sense when you think about it. It's probably unlikely to happen though. So that's why I threw the Bears in there. So for kind of a different reason. Value, talent-wise, much better than their fifth, but because he's pretty pricey, and the Falcons kind of made it known that they're kind of trying to shop him, so lost a little leverage there. Kind of put it around a fifth. But I think no takers, mainly because the contract situation. If he was like a healthy guy, for sure healthy, durable, then probably be dealt, and it would probably be a lot better in a fifth. But because of that, with mainly the contract situation, a little pricey, probably no takers there. So that's why he's kind of remaining with the Falcons. Could they surprisingly cut him? They said they wouldn't. Again, that could be to pull those teams in. Like, all right, we better trade for him. They're not going to cut him. Could be. I don't. It's possible. I don't see it though. I'm going to believe them when they said they're not going to cut him, but we'll see. And again, we're not going to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm sick of it. We mentioned his name. We mentioned his name, but I still think he eventually cut. Probably, unless Deshaun Watson suspended the whole season and the Browns maybe make a move for him. If he's cut, maybe the Seahawks. We're talking about him. I can't believe I'm doing it. But, we can talk about all these guys here and other guys you view maybe as trade candidates when we're talking with you guys on Twitter or in the comment section here. So let me know your thoughts. I really always enjoy doing these trade videos. So much go into them with the value, the landing spots, and prediction there. So we'll see if we get any of these right. We'll see if there'll be any big trades, some surprising trades. I would really enjoy that. But it should be a fun next couple, I was going to say weeks, next couple, the rest of the year and on, because the season's starting. So hopefully you join us for everything here. Like, subscribe to notifications on, follow us on Twitter. Very important. Link down below for that. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.